What's up guys, Creighton here from LogicLounge.com. If you're like me, you live in many different operating systems, from Windows 7 to Windows 8 to a couple of Linux distributions and more. There's a lot of operating systems out there, and I like running them and experimenting with them. Unfortunately, I don't have all the dedicated computers to run each individual operating system. So what do? I use virtual machines, and today we're going to be looking at a particular virtual machine software called VMware Fusion. Now, at the current time of this recording, we're going to be looking at VMware 5.0.4. That is their latest version at the time of this recording. So, getting into it, it's wonderfully simple to look at, and it's very easy to keep track of and to use, and it beats out most of the other competition when you're looking at virtual machine software. So as you can see here, I have Windows 7. I have a Windows 7 VM on it. Since this is a new OS 10 install, I was only able to load on one virtual machine, but what's really cool is that you can export these virtual machines, import them from other virtual machine programs, and bring them in, which I think is wonderfully fantastic. And this is a general overview of your library of virtual machines. As you can see here, I could list off tons of virtual machines. I can create folders, so I could say Windows, VMs, and I could drag and drop the Windows 7 VM in there so you can keep everything organized if you have a lot of VMs that you want to use. Now, when you click on each VM, you have great settings and tools available to you. So first off, you see in this black box area, that is actually where a snapshot would be of what the virtual machine looks like in its current state. The current state of this machine is off, so it shows a black screen. But if I had suspended it, it would show me maybe a picture of the desktop or the application that I was working in. You can also see the notes section as well. So if you were using this virtual machine for a specific topic and you wanted to make some notes on it and then come back to it later, that's a perfect place to do it. Then one of the things that I find greatly fantastic about this is that it shows you how much space it's using. So you can see I'm using 34.3 gigabytes of the hard disk space, which 10.7 of it I can reclaim. And it's easy to reclaim space. You just say cleanup recommended, and then you can go through that and you can start reclaiming space and all that fun stuff. So you can save space while still using your virtual machines, because a lot of software will only allocate the space that you put to it and won't let you reclaim any of it if you can. Now, if you can see here, I'm running Windows 7 64-bit. That's right. VMware Fusion runs 64-bit operating systems, which I think is fantastic because I love 64-bit and everything around it. So you also have settings up here, such as, well, settings. So you can have a ton of different stuff. This is the menu that we were showing up before. You can name it. The notes, again, if you want it to start automatically when VMware launches, you can set that up. Clicking that clean up virtual machine again will clean that virtual machine up. You have other sharing options as well. So you can share folders from your computer to the VM easily, and it creates just a virtual disk on there. One of the things that I don't use as much, but I think is maybe useful for other people who might want to integrate Windows or the VM inside of Mac, is this applications menu. Now, I have it turned off because I like to keep my VMs isolated, but what happens is that you can put this menu bar up here. If you can see up here, I have this new icon. If I click on it, you can go and see all the applications and documents. So it allows transparency between the VM and OS 10, which I think is fantastic. You have other settings as allocating the number of processors you want, the number of, or the amount of memory that you want. And when I say number of processors, I'm talking about the number of cores from that processor. Since I have a 4-core, but 8 hyper-threaded, I could, well, theoretically, I could allocate all 8 processor cores, or I could do 4, 2, or 1, depending on how powerful I want the virtual machine to be. You also have other options, again, it's including memory. You can enable hypervisor, you can enable code profiling. So you have all these advanced features, and if you're one of those advanced people, you probably, well, you already know that. And if you have a Retina MacBook Pro, VMware Fusion has full resolution for Retina display support, so you can use that full Retina resolution. What's also very neat that I have found myself using a lot when I'm working with networking is that you can either share the internet connection with your Mac, or you can create its own network. So I think that's kind of an interesting thing when you're trying to diagnose network problems or do little local network stuff like that. You have easily resizable disk storage, so you can easily resize it to however big you need it, and you can create it so that it splits it up into 2 gigabyte partitions, or you can pre-allocate the full space, or you have all that sorts of stuff, which I think is great for those users who, again, are advanced. And then you have the settings again for sound. You can configure your USB settings. If you have a floppy drive, for all intensive purposes, you can enable floppy drives, printers, startup disks, all that sort of stuff. You can even enable encryption, so if you want it to be a private VM that nobody can get into, and if they get into it, they can't really get into it, well, then that encryption is there for you as well. Compatibility stuff, so if you have older VMware Fusion VMs, you can bring them in and make them compatible with higher or lower versions. And then you have all this advanced setting stuff, which gets into remote displays, troubleshooting, all that sort of stuff. So you have access to a lot of settings, which I think is great. And then one thing that I've found myself using a lot, which I think is very cool, is if you're making some big changes to your VM or you're experimenting, snapshots are great. You can take snapshots of the current state of your VM, and if you screw anything up, you can just roll it back, which I think is great if you're trying to mess with stuff, which I think that's what most people do when they use VMs, is they're messing with stuff, experimenting. So it's kind of great that you can get snapshots in there. And as the plane goes overhead, as you can probably hear, we can move on here. So let's get actually into this VM, and hopefully it won't take too long to start up, because there's some stuff that I want to show you guys in Windows 7 that I think is something that, well, a lot of people could benefit from. So VMware Fusion comes with a tool set that you can integrate into Windows to make it more fluidly and transparently work with it. And as I resize this overly gigantic window, because I have very large displays, we can get into Windows 7. So one of the things that this software set does is it allows it to be resized and it to automatically take in that resize and create the optimal resolution for it. So as you can see here, this is my normal VMware desktop-y. You can see I've got Steam installed and all that sort of stuff. So while that's happening and blocking me from doing stuff, I'm going to come back here for one moment into this virtual machines library, and I want to show you something. So as I was talking about, you can use virtual machines, right? Well, you're going to need, virtual disks, ISO disks. You can also install from your CD drive as well. But if you're on a Mac, you might have access to something called Boot Camp. It allows you to run Windows natively on a Mac through their little software set, Apple's software set. Well, if you have a Boot Camp partition, you can add Boot Camp drives to the VMware. That's right. So you don't have to boot into your Boot Camp drive to be able to access your Boot Camp drive. I said Boot Camp a lot there, didn't I? So I find that incredibly amazing. You can use Boot Camp drives right there. That's amazing. So back in here to Windows 7, you'll have to excuse me. You can see here in the bottom left, I have my VMware shared folders, and it gives me access to my folders on my Mac. So I have complete transparency there, and I love that. So this is just a little bit of what VMware Fusion offers. It's a lot in there, and they offer a lot, which I think, well, that's great. VMware has done it right in my books. I've used a lot of different virtual machine software, and VMware has been the people that I have been dedicating myself to when I am choosing a VMware client or a VM client. So if you're looking for a paid version of a virtual machine, consider VMware Fusion. It's about $50, or if you get their professional version, which comes a little bit more stuff, it's about $99, but well worth the price. And I think you get discounts too when new versions come out. So check it out, VMware Fusion. As I said before, this is version 5.0.3, which is the current version at this time. Definitely something to check out. Hopefully that's a lot of information, I know, for you guys, but hopefully you can take that in, digest it, consider picking up VMware Fusion for yourself. My name is Creighton Miller. If you have any questions for me, email me, creighton@logiclounge.com. You can follow our profiles on Facebook and Twitter and Google+, all under the username of LogicLounge. Thank you so much for liking. Thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate it, and, well, our company really appreciates it as well. Thank you so much once again. My name is Creighton Miller. We'll see you guys next time.